Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. During today's session of the Polish People's Party General Council, party leader Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz declared his readiness to start in next year's Polish presidential elections. The politician also appealed to the opposition for cross-party support for his candidacy. The dust has settled after the recent parliamentary elections, and political parties are now starting to focus on next year's presidential election. The centre-left opposition has a dilemma on their hands, namely who to put forward as their candidate for the presidency. The opposition must really consider who should be running, because at the moment they seem to be so strongly divided that it would be possible to field at least a dozen, if not several dozen people.
We will field our candidate in the first round of the election. However, we will see what happens in the second round. I'm counting on the entire opposition to support the opposition candidate, who will enter the second round of presidential elections.
Naturally, we will field our candidate. Therefore, any talks about the support of a joint candidate should also include a candidate of the left. The talks will take place after the first round, and then we will decide who it will be. Or actually, we will not decide, only the voters. To no surprise, the Law and Justice camp will be hoping for Andrzej Duda's re-election next year. I think that Mr. Kosiniak-Kamysz will run as the leader of the Polish People's Party, but I do not think he will have a chance to enter the second round, if such a second round will take place at all. That is because I hope that President Andrzej Duda, if he runs, and I hope that he does, will win in the first round. Columnist Marek Król believes that Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz has the best chance of advancing to the second round as a candidate of the opposition. Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz may be a serious opponent for Andrzej Duda in the second round, but I don't think he could threaten his re-election as president. The latest survey conducted by SW Research on behalf of Rzeczpospolita shows that, according to respondents, it is Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz who is the leader of the opposition. The latest opinion poll conducted by Social Changes suggests that Polish voters still favour the Law and Justice government. The poll created for Polityce.pl also shows that smaller parties, such as the Left Alliance, Confederacy, as well as the Polish People's Party, have grown in terms of their support base.
The poll shows that if elections to the parliament would take place this Sunday, 41.1% of Poles would vote for the Law and Justice Party. The Civic Coalition would occupy second place with the support of 24.9% of voters. The Democratic Left Alliance came third with 15.9% of the votes. The Polish People's Party is fourth with 9.8% of respondents, with the right-wing Confederation coming in the fifth place with 8.3%.
Exactly 34 years ago, on November 3rd, the funeral of blessed priest Jerzy Popiełuszko, brutally murdered by officers of the communist secret police, took place in Warsaw. The funeral ceremony in the St. Stanisław Kostka church in the Żoliborz district of Warsaw gathered over 800,000 Poles and turned into a great manifestation against the communist authorities.
Jerzy Popiełuszko was a chaplain of the Solidarity movement, which opposed the communist authorities in the 1980s. Popiełuszko was a staunch anti-communist and considered to be one of the greatest leaders of the Polish dissident movement. Thousands of Poles participated in the holy masses he performed in the St. Stanisław Kostka church. In his homilies, he spoke openly about defending the ideals of the Solidarity movement as well as his opposition to violence. He criticized the abuses of the communist authorities and urged Poles to continue the fight for an independent Poland. Father Popiełuszko was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by 4 officials of the communist secret police on October 19, 1984 at the age of 37. The communist investigation into the crime never revealed who had ordered his murder, but General Jaruzelski, the leader of the military junta ruling Poland at the time, is considered the main suspect. Father Popiełuszko was beatified in 2010 and his canonization process is underway.
The town of Pahiatua in New Zealand has organized a reunion for Polish child refugees who arrived to New Zealand 75 years ago on November 1st, 1944. The children came from Polish families who were forcibly deported by the Soviet Union to Siberia and Kazakhstan after the Soviet invasion of eastern Poland in 1939. Most of them were orphaned in Siberia, but were able to join up with the Polish Andes Army, which, after a deal struck by the Western Allies and Stalin, was allowed to leave the Soviet Union and crossed into British-controlled Iran in 1942. The Polish children remained in Iran for over a year as the state of their health was in many cases very poor. The League of Nations reached out to member states asking for help for the Polish child refugees, and New Zealand was one of few countries to offer it. The now elderly Poles were welcomed back to Pahiatua by children with Polish flags, people dressed in Polish national costumes, and a traditional New Zealand haka. Many of the Poles were clearly moved by being back.
Absolutely fantastic, I'm proud of Pahiatua. I'm very emotional.
I always remember the day we arrived. I was so afraid that they were going to take us away again.
The Polish community in New Zealand numbers 4,000 people, most of which either arrived or are the descendants of the Poles who arrived to the country during or shortly after the Second World War. That is all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.